everyone, and welcome to Vice Cubes. I'm your host, Raven Eiko. Thank you for joining me today. Please like, share, and subscribe. I am on Spreaker, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Mixcloud, Castbox, and YouTube. Come follow me on Instagram at Vice Cubes, where I often share pics that correlate with each episode. And come visit my website at vicecubespodcast.com. You can also send me an email at vicecubes@gmail.com. Now, today's case is a particularly horrible one. It involves violence against a child. So I know I say it before every episode that listener discretion is strongly advised, but I really mean it this time, guys. If you choose to continue listening, I will give you a heads up at the point where the details get really bad so that you can stop or skip ahead. If you're triggered by violence against a child, maybe this is not the episode for you. And I'm not going to go into the details in this case are really bad. I'm not going to go into the really, really, morbid parts of it. That's not what this is about. But I just wanted to warn you that it may get bad. So, with that being said, here we go. On the morning of January 17th, 2008, according to 33-year-old Nancy Chanko, she woke her father and let him know that she was leaving their apartment. She left her 23-month-old toddler, Cyrus Belt, in the apartment with her 62-year-old father, Lilo Asiata, and her current boyfriend, 29-year-old Shane Mizusawa. Now, Mizusawa was not the father of Cyrus. He was her current boyfriend. So, at around 11, just a little after 11, about 11:15 in the morning, an off-duty police officer found little Cyrus wandering the street outside his Iolani Avenue apartment building. This takes place on the island of Oahu. So, the officer went and got the child and took the child, to go look for his family. He eventually found where the boy lived, and I've read accounts where this officer gave the child back to the grandfather. I've read an account where he gave the child to Shane Mizusawa. I'm not 100% sure which of the gentlemen that he gave the child back to, but anyway, he returned the child to his home. Now, at this time, the child's father, his name is David Belt, he was already incarcerated at the Waiava Minimum Security Facility. He was serving 5 years on a conviction of criminal property damage and felony drug possession. Baby Cyrus was born on February 6th, 2006, just a month prior to his father's incarceration. Matthew Higa was 23 years old at the time. He lived upstairs in the same apartment building. He lived with his father, Shelton Higa, and it was reported that Nancy would sometimes leave the child with Matthew to watch. According to Shelton Higa, they would all smoke crystal meth together. He would smoke it with his son Matthew. They would smoke with Chanko and with Mizusawa often. Shelton Higa said that when Matthew was jonesing for meth, he would become paranoid and get violent, abusive, quote, but only toward furniture and things like that, not to people, unquote. So Child Welfare Services had initiated an investigation into the family even before Cyrus was born. On January 11, 2008, Nancy Chanko had tested positive for crystal methamphetamine, and a worker was assigned to conduct a home visit with Chanko and baby Cyrus to ensure he was being properly cared for. Apparently, Chanko had, I believe, 2 older children by the time that she had baby Cyrus. So needless to say, this visit with the worker did not happen. So as you can already see, much of the people that surrounded this baby were meth addicts. So getting back to that day, January 17th, 2008, just after 11 a.m., when the off-duty officer returned baby Cyrus to his home, after finding him wandering around alone, not long after that, Cyrus was dead. And the details of his death are horrifying, so here is your warning. If you're triggered by violence against children, you should stop listening here. So approximately a half hour after the child was returned home, witness Mary Susan Arnold found the broken body of baby Cyrus lying on the H1 freeway. She said, quote, "There was nothing I could do. I held the baby's hand and it was warm," unquote. She was driving on the freeway when the vehicles in front of her swerved to the right, so she did as well and pulled over. When she saw what was lying in the road, she knew instantly it was a small child. When she got to his body, she realized he was already gone, an angel, so she ran back to her car and grabbed a blanket to cover his body. Witness Sonny Kiaha was in the truck ahead of Mary and was surprised to see something falling from the overpass, almost hitting his truck. His passenger yelled, quote, "Uncle, it's a baby," unquote. And then he felt a thump. He had run over whatever had fell from the overpass, and there was no way he could avoid hitting Cyrus. It all happened so fast. You heard me right, guys. I said something was falling from the overpass. That isn't quite correct, though. The correct words are that someone had thrown something off the 25-foot pedestrian overpass. Matthew Higa had thrown baby Cyrus off the overpass and into oncoming traffic on the H1 freeway, where he was hit by at least one vehicle. The vehicle driven by Sonny Kiaha. It was actually a delivery truck. Several witnesses saw Higa throw the baby from the overpass, and at least 4 of them, 3 on foot and 1 on a bike, chased him down while police were called. Higa was taken into custody within the hour. For some reason, Matthew Higa was wearing green hospital scrubs. As he was being taken into custody by police, he yelled, quote, "Thank you for everything," unquote, at TV camera crews. You can see this if you search for it on YouTube. He yelled a bunch of things. He was just belligerent. He was so belligerent that he had to be taken to the Queens Medical Center psychiatric ward before he could be booked. The scrubs he was wearing were apparently from the Queens Medical Center. Apparently, Matthew Higa had been a patient in the mental health wing there before, as recently as December 2007, just a month before this incident. So now, he's charged with a second-degree murder for the death of Cyrus Belt, and his bail was set at $1 million. And I read accounts where it said that Nancy Chanko, baby Cyrus's mother, didn't even know that her child was dead until that evening, hours after the incident. Why? Because she had been out illegally gambling and smoking meth. The trial was not before a jury. The defense decided to proceed with a bench trial, meaning that the judge himself would be responsible with weighing the evidence and making the decision on guilt. Prior to trial, Higa was examined to determine his competency to proceed with trial. He was found mentally competent. At the trial, the defense argued that someone else, perhaps Cyrus's mother's boyfriend, Shane Mizusawa, had killed the toddler, and then someone had given the child to Higa, who then dropped him off the overpass. So there was this weird story. And I believe he told it while he was being interviewed by police. But what he said was that some lady came running up to him while he was on the overpass, standing on the overpass, and the lady had a bag in her hands, and the lady just gave him the bag or told him or pushed him to throw the bag over the overpass. And according to Higa, he didn't know what was in the bag, but that it was the baby. In another police interview, he told police that he did throw the baby, that the boy was alive and crying before he threw him off the overpass. So as you can see, there's a lot of different stories. According to his attorney, because Higa was high on meth at the time that he spoke with police, that those statements were untrustworthy. They also argued that he was mentally incapacitated at the time because he was high on meth. There is a state law in Hawaii that prohibits that defense. But, that's all that they had to go on because Higa himself did not take the stand. So now Deputy Medical Examiner Dr. Gail Suzuki testified that baby Cyrus was killed either by the fall or by the impact of the vehicle that hit him, which was actually a delivery truck. There were several witnesses. Like I said, this happened at, before noon in the daytime. So there were witnesses that actually saw it happen. Some say that he threw the baby up in the air. So the baby went up and then down before, landing on the H1. Some people said that they did not see that the baby was moving, that they thought that maybe it was a doll. And some people, actually said that they did see the baby moving. So the judge had his work cut out for him in this one. He found Matthew Higa guilty of second-degree murder and was subsequently sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. In a hearing before the parole board in July of 2010, the prosecutor asked for enhanced sentencing to be imposed, meaning that Higa would not be able to ask for parole after serving the customary minimum of 15 years. The Hawaii Paroling Authority set a 200-year minimum term, meaning that he could ask for a reduction in sentence after serving 1/3 of the minimum sentence, which would put Higa at about 90 years old. We've talked about this kind of enhanced sentencing in Cube 4, the Harpist, where the killer got a life sentence for second-degree murder. Now, after the trial, the Department of Human Services released its record of the child welfare dealings with baby Cyrus's family prior to his murder. There were 185 pages of documents that spanned 6 years, including cases involving Cyrus. He was removed from the family at least once for a short time and then returned. In one document, workers concluded that Nancy Chanko's children, including Cyrus, now remember she had 2 older children as well, were, quote, at severe risk for serious/fatal harm because both the mother and father had a significant history of drug use and domestic violence. Also quoted in reports, substance abuse prevents caregiver from protecting or providing for the child, unquote. So I feel like this child never had a chance. He was born into drugs his entire short life. He was surrounded by drug users. His dad was already in lockup. His mom was on drugs. Her boyfriend was on drugs. Matthew Higa's father. Again, Matthew Higa wasn't related to them, but I guess he spent a lot of time with the family. I didn't find anything where it said that Nancy's father was on drugs. But I know that he lived in the apartment with Nancy and with at least this child. I'm not sure where the other children lived. Another sad thing. Let's go back to that hearing in front of the parole board. Matthew Higa, he spoke at that hearing, the one for his minimum sentence, and he actually said that he was sad because he knew the baby and he liked the baby, but he didn't kill the baby. That was his words. Which is super sad. But anyway, let's talk about meth and its effects on families. And unfortunately, the life of this child before his death is very common. Lots of broken homes, lots of parents are addicted to drugs, not just meth, but other types of drugs. But meth is actually one of the most abused drugs here in Hawaii. From the Hawaii Addiction Center, it says that Hawaii has one of the highest rates